Hey YouTube, today we're going to look at a comparison between a Colt Python and a Smith and Wesson 586. Now, I recently did a video comparing a 686 stainless version to a 4-inch original bright stainless Colt Python, and I figured why not show you the differences in the blued ones. So before we go any further, I'm going to show you that neither one of these revolvers have anything in them, and we are clear to make this video and nobody can get hurt. And I always safety check these things beforehand, and this is no exception. So what we have here, this is a Colt Python made in 1970, and this is a royal blue, they refer to this as, and I'm going to show you the difference in this and probably a 1990s. This is a -4 Smith and Wesson 586 chambered in 357 Magnum. Now, folks, both these guns are in perfect condition, and these blued guns are really hard to show you on camera without putting fingerprints on them. And I'm not a glove wearer, so you're gonna have to bear with me and just be very mindful of that. So this is a 586-4. This was made in the 1990s, and this thing is absolutely gorgeous. Now, this one came from the factory as a round butt gun, and it came with rubber grips on them. And I put these combat grips on them because I'm a wood grip kind of guy, and I think they look absolutely awesome on this gun. It's really easy to find combat grips to put on these, and combat grips look the best on a round butt gun. So, and on the -4 is when they started, Smith and Wesson started phasing out a square butt revolver, and they went mostly with, or I think they went completely with round butts. So that's all they had to offer, and they started putting rubber grips on them on the -4. And I'm a wood grip kind of guy, so I bought an older set of combat grips made for a round butt Smith & Wesson. Now, when I did a comparison on these before, I did it with my 6-inch 586, and I compared it to a stock out of the box Colt Python. Same with the stainless ones. I told you if these were straight out of the box, this wouldn't even be close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the up closes of these, and this thing has got a gorgeous finish on them, folks. I mean, this bluing is absolutely to die for. If you look at all the corners right here, I mean, you'll see how it's finished off and everything like that, and see some of these roll marks on this thing. It says Smith & Wesson right here, and on the other side, it says 357 Magnum. And the bluing is pretty deep on this thing, and very gorgeous. The action on it works really smooth, and as with all Smith & Wessons, it turns counterclockwise on it. Now, on a Smith & Wesson, you push on this cylinder to open, push on the cylinder release to open the cylinder, and it works in double action and single action. So the single action on this thing, pull the trigger, it's absolutely impeccable. It's awesome. Double action is smooth all the way through, but it does require a little bit of heft to pull back on the trigger. On the blued versions of the Smith & Wessons, the hammer and the trigger is color case hardened. So they use a color case hardened finish on these, and it looks absolutely awesome on them. But the bluing's real nice. The grips look really nice on this thing. It's just a really awesome looking gun. This size frame in the 4-inch configuration is probably my favorite Smith & Wesson size. Frame size and barrel length. I mentioned that when I did the 4-inch 686. Now, there's no problems with this gun, but one of the things about them, if you were going into the gun store in the 80s or the 90s, you would look at these two side by side, and this is what they would look like in the case. Now, it takes twice as amount of money to buy one of these as it does one of these. And if you look at these, there's a lot less of a difference than the last comparison that I made, folks. So it's going to be a really hard sell to figure out why you're going to pay double the money for this Colt than you would the Smith & Wesson. And I'm going to try and show you where the extra money went. If you look at this bluing, and it's hard to show this in person on camera, but it's easier to see it in person, but there is no other blue job that Colt did than they did on these guns. These people were master gunsmiths that have hours and hours and hours under their belt knowing how to polish a gun before they blew it. And this blue makes this gun absolutely look wet. There is no comparison in the two finish jobs. There's not one person out there, including the biggest Smith and Wesson fan in the world, that's going to say that the bluing job on a Smith and Wesson looks like this, because it doesn't, folks. If you just look at this, I'm trying to move it around here. Like I said, any imperfections you see is going to be merely fingerprints. But if you look at this bluing job, there is no comparison. I'm going to do the Smith and Wesson the same way, and it is a pretty bluing job on it, no doubt about it. But it is not going to be on the same level as the Colt Python. It's not. It's just not even going to be close. Now, some of the other differences is you'll notice is they equally finish off the trigger and the hammer. They polish those off too, and just the ends of the trigger is blued. So a little bit of attention to detail they paid. And if you look at all the edges to like this cylinder here, see how finely they're finished off and they're machined off, and there's no sharp edges anywhere on here. If you compare that to the Smith & Wesson, Smith & Wesson isn't bad, but it's just a lot sharper corners on around on everything, and it's not as completely finished off. You also have what Colt Python's known for is this ventilated rib on top. It gives it that iconic look on it. And just all these machine lines and everything. There's no person on this earth going to tell you that this isn't a good looking gun. Now, where all the money is, folks, is in these actions. This double action here, it's going to take a little bit of effort to pull it. And like I said, this one's right out of the box. There's been no action work done. No gunsmith has ever touched this. This is how you would receive it. This Colt Python is at another level. When you pull this trigger on this thing, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's just smooth all the way through. It's a whole lot lighter and everything like that. All the roll marks are just perfect on this thing. And as you can see, there is going to ever be another blue job that looks like this. Nobody else took the time to do that. And Smith & Wesson did a good job, no doubt, but they did not do this kind of job. And this is where all the money is. It costs a lot of money in labor to get somebody that can polish a gun out like this and apply this blue finish. The blue finish, I believe, was like very toxic to do. And I know they just started making a blued Python. And to be honest with you, I have not seen one in person yet to make an assessment. I've seen a couple of them in pictures and videos, but I have not seen one in person to see if it measures up to what this job looks like. But between the looks and the performance right out of the box, that's where the extra money goes to, folks. It's not just a name thing. It's in all labor. These things are very labor intensive to make, and I mean somebody has to pay for that, so it has to be passed on to the consumer. The grips on these things, this isn't a fair comparison because this is a square butt gun and this is a round butt gun, but the grips are always going to be about even on them. I like both of them equally as well. I think these are cool because these are the combat grips because it's a round butt gun. Now with the Colts, I mentioned that the Smith & Wesson, you push on the cylinder release. With the Colts, you pull back to pull this cylinder out. And a lot of Smith & Wesson people make the argument that it's harder to do a Colt because you have to change your stance to pull back, and I think that's false, folks. I've shot a lot more Colts than I have Smith & Wessons, and even when I'm shooting a Smith & Wesson, it's automatic muscle memory for me to pull back on this. One of the other things about this thing is the size of this hammer. The older Colt Pythons have such a big old hammer spur on them. It's just so much easier to reach your thumb up here to cock this hammer than it is on the Smith & Wesson right here. The hammer's much smaller and just a little bit harder to reach up there. It's not as hard on the smaller round butt guns that it is if you had those big old target stocks on them, but it does make a difference, folks, when you're shooting. But I just want to do a side-by-side on a out-of-the-box factory Smith & Wesson 586 in blue to an out-of-the-box Colt Python, vintage Colt Python in royal blue, and show you side-by-side differences and why a lot of people covet these Colt Pythons more than they do the Smith & Wessons. But anyway, folks, you have any questions on either one of these guns, feel free to ask me. I may not be an expert on it, but I'll figure out the answer for you. Thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.